All right, Lions fans, let's come back with another one. Uh, of course, we're going to talk about the recent firing of the general manager Bob Quinn and head coach Matt Patricia. And as if anybody who was listening to any of the vids, you guys know that I was a supporter of Patricia, and I don't know if an explanation is necessary of why I supported it. I did tons of videos of why. And my thing is, could you win with Patricia? Yeah, you can win with Patricia. But the only thing is that Patricia had to get out his own way, which is tough because it's like you're taught like how to he was groomed in a way that was like he was groomed in like a from the penthouse suite, so to speak. Um was he around the Patriots system for quite some time? Yeah, but I don't think any of the things that he did was really battle tested per se. It just came when he became head coach. Well, let me just say it this way: I think it was too many factors of why he wouldn't be successful, and why he wasn't. Let me say not wouldn't be successful. Why he wasn't successful, and what's interesting is that the question becomes, where does the line go from here? Now, my thing was, if they did fire Quinn and Patricia, I was more so against it because I don't trust the ownership to replace a proper hiring. The reason why I say that because they went to the well, I think I want to say three times with almost considered a sure thing. And what I mean by that, there's no sure thing per se in terms of hiring a head coach or a general manager, and all that good stuff. But the reason why I say they went to the well for a sure thing, the best that you have to go off of is what that general manager or that potential general manager or the hiring of that individual or hiring of that coach. The best you have is what they displayed or where they came from. It's very rare that you hit a lightning in a bottle for a guy with no experience and they hit the ball, hit the ground running. It's very rare. And so, with that being said, Detroit alone, well, to say Detroit Lions alone, if I were to use a city or as a separate from actual sports, and it as a sports venue, but if I were to use Detroit Lions in particular, use Detroit Lions particularly, especially, they were. It is a hard. It's a difficult place to win here. Now, a fan may say, no, that's not the case. Well, then why come they haven't won in like 50 years? It's a difficult place to win here. They went to the well with Quinn and Patricia. It's like they went to the well with Marinelli, Steve Mariucci, and Schwartz. They went to this certain type of well. This well is like Cardwell. They went to this well where these guys they may not have been head coaches per se, but with the exception maybe of Steve Mariucci and Cardwell. They may have been head coaches prior to, but they went to a well where they had so much success where it was at. But this is the problem that it is with the Detroit Lions, and I would say with Detroit, let alone with that being said, the Detroit Lions is that it's hard to win here because there's really no blueprint of accountability. What I mean by that is more so this team or this organization have been kicking the can down the road for years, kicking the can, kicking the can, kicking the can, and it never stopped the way that it has been doing, in terms of actually winning football per se. I believe it's very productive business wise, and I think that was considered acceptable. So long as it's profitable business wise, wins and losses is like the icing on the cake, and I get that from an owner standpoint. But it's very rare that you have an owner that actually wants to win more than actually making a profit. It's very rare. So because it's business, and this is most owners already have a business going, and it's about accumulating more revenue and so forth. I get that. So it's very rare that you have an owner that actually wants to win more competitively, or and all that good stuff, versus just actually having a capital come in. So, but with that being said, this is a tough place for anybody to come here as a GM or head coach. It's tough for anybody. And the reason why I was against the firing of it, and I guess I was more in the perspective that I wanted it to work, because it's where do you go from here? Because if they invested so much in a certain way of this well was, well, Quinn was up under a successful environment, right? Just like Steve Barriucci was up under a successful environment. You go to this well that if a coach or a general manager, or the potential of a general manager, is up under a successful Western name, I guess the expectation, or not even the expectation, but the hope, I guess, is, because that's all it is when it comes to something competitively, is I ain't gonna say a 50-50 chance, is the odds are really kind of stacked up against you that you could be successful coming out the gate. So they went to that well that it was almost like you go to the well that the best way possible, with the least risk as possible. And by going with Quinn, and going with Quinn it was a good hiring in comparison to Mayhew. But but Mayhew was actually a good hiring compared to Millen. So this is what I mean by kicking the can up the road. It's tough because Quinn had to clean up a lot of mess of what Millen did. And that was based upon the mess that Mayhew had to clean up, the mess that Millen did. Mayhew really couldn't do his job because of what the deficit of, I guess Millen was here for like 8 years. And since there was no accountability for that, and during that stretch fund, like if they fired Quinn and Patricia in their third, as a tandem in the third year, or in the midst of the season, the third year, but they allowed Millen to stay for 8 years, that's what the problem was, or the problem has remained. Now, I understand you got a different owner. They may do things a little differently. I get it. But the problem was they never recovered from the Millen era. The Millen era took over from the Wayne Fontes, and I don't know who the general manager was at that time, but that was when the last time they was actually winning. I mean, like competitively, and I ain't gonna say competitively, but it was, it was like a still 8-18 or type of thing up on Wayne Fontes up to that point. But that's the last time they actually won. It was like that stretch run with Wayne Fontes and so forth. So Millen came after that, but that Millen era put the Lions in such a hole. He didn't build off of what they did in that Barry Sanders, Wayne Fontes era. He didn't build off that. He tore it down, actually. And it kind of put you in the self-same mind of what Patricia, or I could say, I want to say Quinn and Patricia did with the Cardwell or Jim Schwartz Cardwell era. He tore all that down. And the reason why it flopped, in my opinion, is because of the fact that it wasn't going to be enough time for them to do what they need to do here. This is a tough place to. Detroit is not a hard place to win at, but with the Lions is a hard place to win because of the history of not losing, but how it was productively ran. Like I said, from a financial standpoint, they're okay, I suppose. But when it comes to the the ability to win versus making money, that's where I think the ball is tipped, or the scale is tipping. So you go into the reason why I was really against the firing of those, because where do you go from here? Because there was such a deficit that they put all this eggs in this basket of building up for 3 years, right? So it had to work. Or here we go again with we try and get a lightning in the bottle based upon what was already built. Who could come in here who has the competitive edge, who has the juice, who has the will, who has the desire, who have all these traits along with the history of doing all that, who's rejuvenated, I guess you could say rejuvenated, who is in that position. So you get these, you hear the fans may say these first year guys, but they haven't been battle tested. They will come here and have what they learned somewhere else to be battle tested, because they're basically coming on their own for like a first year or an up and coming like head coach or per se, or a coordinator is about to be converted over to a head coach. They don't really have much. They don't have no experience, and everything that they learned where they was at, they may have been successful, but their success is not based upon them. Their success is based upon as an organization, as a team, So when they come here, you would be asking them to stand on an island on their own. So all that had to go through the process of being battle tested, and that's the problem with the problem with hiring Patricia from the very start. I supported the hire, not when they hired him, after they hired him, because of the simple fact that I'm going to support any coach that came here, and I see what he saw. The only problem is where him and I differ. I'm speaking about Patricia. The only problem that I have with him was that he couldn't get out his own way, and that's when I asked the question: was Patricia too good for Detroit? And I believe that he was. I believe he thought that he was too good based upon how he was and how Detroit is built up. Not just the team, but just the city. A lot of people are going to look upon Detroit because how it's been trashed over decades. You really have to have a heart for the city to really want to be here and thrive here. And you almost got to come from similar background or a similar background as the Detroit natives are. So it's tough to find that type of guy that has that type of recipe, the resume that they're close to the native or the natives here, and in terms of I don't want to call it upbringing, but how they structurally is built. They are competitive. They have a desire to be here. Not just that, they have a track history, a proven track history that has been successful. That's energetic, that actually can hit the ground running with the team that's already established. That's going to be tough. That's going to be tough for any GM head coach, because if you give the keys to the GM and say, okay, tear everything down, that's another 3 years, and then you have to watch them rebuild it. Now, immediately fans are going to compare the Lions to the Tigers, to the Red Wings, and to the Pistons. All those other three sports teams in this town has been winners. And they all have won it in a different way, but they all have won it the same way. You find your anchor and you build off of that. That's the best shot you got. This is the reason why when I did a couple of videos ago, when I said their last dominant player, when I was talking about a dominance, the Lions are missing one dominant player with this team right now. And I went as far as to say either there's a dominant player on the offensive line, on at the point of attack on defense, or you got to have a head coach that's dominant. And this is where I talk about like a Jimmy Johnson type of dominance, not a dictator per se, or someone that's like a overkill that try to make you do what they want to do, but they actually can. It's weird, you know. It's kind of like a hard combination to come by, but until the Lions get that one franchise, like I'm gonna say one franchise, but that one, yeah, I guess you could say that one franchise dominant player. Until they get that, I don't see anybody. I see it's so hard to win here. And the last time that they actually was winning was when, okay, you're talking about 91. The reason why I believe that they won because you had a dominant player to build off of, and that was Barry Sanders. Since then, you came close with, I ain't gonna say came close, but your next guy up for dominance is Ndamukong Suh. And if like this, let's say it this way, going into this draft, if they were to draft a guy that was in the mode of Ndamukong Suh, right, and go into this draft, the Lions will be instantaneously contenders. Because all this team needs is a leader, like a building block to build off of. So they have a lot of role players, but they are missing one dominant piece. The guy that they can depend on, no matter who the opponent is or whatever that they're going through, this person is bona fide. There's nothing really much you can do with this guy. You can't stop him from being who he is. So, and with that being said, that individual will have to have that self-same drive and will and desire to want to be here. I don't believe in Ndamukong Suh wanted to be here. So he got out of here, you know, and it's weird, man. It's weird. Barry Sanders actually didn't mind being here because he kept signing extensions. I guess, you know, the money's good. I guess you sign too. I guess, I don't know. But it's just interesting. Trying to find a viable candidate, GM, coach, is going to be tough because they have to be able to win with what they have, unless you're talking about stripping it down, which is probably going to be another another 3 years and possibly going through that rebuild, which just actually was another rebuild. So, but then you got to find somebody who's competent. Let me rephrase that. Not just not competent, but a guy who checks off all the boxes. Excuse me. Who desires to be, who wants to be, who has the experience to be, and my candidate is Jim Harbaugh. And somebody say, well, not necessarily so because what he did in Michigan. I don't think he ever wanted to go to Michigan. I think he was all tapped out of college. But then again, that could be just proof that he could be tapped out of coaching, period. And you take the job because it's offering you the money. I get it. I don't know. See, that's the point that I'm making. You don't know what you're really going to get with him. It's like you don't know what you're going to really get with anybody at this point. So the safe candidate right now is Darrell Bevell. The safe candidate right now is like in-house hiring. And I guess the interim head coach right now is Darrell Bevell. So that's who you have. The only problem with that is, once again, is a problem. Let's say the Lions went through this before when I believe when they had they fired wasn't Marinelli. Who was it? They fired, wasn't Mariucci. No, it was before it was before Matt Millen brought his people in. They had they fired, I believe, Wayne Fontes, and they had the ex-Wolverine coach or whatever, he came and took over. I mean, he didn't come and took over. He was part of the staff, and he was an intern, and they was actually playing winning ball. But then I think Matt Millen came in and actually let him go and brought in I believe at the time, Morningwig. And so the point, what I'm saying is, if you have the intern or the interim coach come in and they actually be somewhat competitive, you don't know if that's what they're going to bring from that point going on. If you were to hire them for full time, or if that was just the adrenaline of getting something new and everybody bought in, it was just a type of deal. So it's a tough place to coach all the way around. I don't know how the Lions can go from here. The only thing I can suggest is that they go step by step, but I don't know if the fans have that much patience, because you got the Pistons, the Red Wings, and the Tigers finna start turning the corner again, and the Lions never won, so it's gonna be tough. And at some point, the revenue of the Lions being successful in financially is gonna start to fall apart. The fan base is not going to. I don't know how fast. I don't know if the fan base will turn, but it won't be as loyal as it has been. Not for the sake of the Lions, but for the sake of a football team here. So it's interesting how they go forward with this, and you can go with someone who's already proven, such a candidate as a Rex Ryan or whatever, but you may have to give him a lot of power to get him to come here, because this is not really a desirable place. But I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting. So my candidate is Jim Harbaugh. The only question is he burnt out, or he just never really wanted to go back to college? And he wanted to stay in a pro level. Did he learn from the San Francisco thing? Is he learning from the Michigan thing? Or is Michigan a place where he's actually, fine-tuning himself? Like the stomach ground, like most people have done with the Lions. That's where they fine-tune. If you really want to look at it, if you really want to fine-tune yourself and actually go for better horizons, you come to that's the point when I'm making. You would come to the Lions. It was either a general manager, if you're either a head coach, if you're out of your coordinator, if you're a player, whatever that it is, you fine tune yourself here, and then you take off somewhere else. Everybody seems to have done it, but that's tough, because I believe the Forest have the idea, or they go in with the optimism that they're hiring somebody who actually has the best interest at heart. And I really do believe when they hired Millen, they had that intentions. I really do believe when they hired Mayhew was up on the Millen, so that was in-house, so that was a safe route. I get that. But they try to cut ties, and when they went outside and went to the National League for help to how to run the organization, so forth, and they went with Quinn, and it didn't work out. I really do believe that they have the actual genuine intentions, or a genuine intention of actually bringing something that will actually be productive. I really do. I just don't know if it's as, I don't know if the scale is in favor of them being more competitively winning football games as it is more so than revenue. That's the problem that I foresee with this organization. And I think that's the pickle that it has been in for over 50 years. It goes back to 50 years. So if they really want to be successful, how was it successful in the beginning? Now you're talking about post the Forest. Before the Forest took over, how was the Lions successful? They got to go back to that. Whatever made them successful then, the Lions have to do that now. And if it was off of Bobby Lane or whatever, off of one particular guy or whatever the case may be, however it was built, of course, Detroit was a place to be at that time. So it's kind of easier. It's like with the Red Wings, it was called Hockey Town during that time because it was a place to be. You could get the best talent. The people didn't mind being here. The city was nowhere near in the position that it was in terms of a culture, in terms of civilization and so forth. And the money was here, and it was a different time. So now you come into a place. it's interesting how it's going to work. And the Lions fans, I salute you guys, for being devoted, and everything else. But somebody asked me the question, like, because of my name, like, why did you get the name? How did you get the name? And or even as far as like, why you not a Lions fan? I like, it's hard to be a Lions fan when the organization is in such a disarray. It's like it's all over the place. It's hard. The last time they was winners was back in the 50s. Or you want to talk about during that time all the way up to what, late, if not early to late 70s. When right when the Force took over, I think the Force bought it like in 79, I think. I'm not sure, I could be wrong. All the way up to that point, I can't say they were successful with it, but you got to think about it, they was winning championships because it was a better place to be in Detroit. Detroit was booming. The auto business was booming. It was just a booming place. It was a place to be. It was an opportunity here. So it was, and I almost want to say that the NFL caters, or sports itself caters to that economic system of that state or that city or so forth. It caters to that in that way. If it's booming, it sets up in a way that you get the cream of the crop type of when it comes to sports. All that is a factor, but I really don't have no idea where the Lions go from here. That's why I was rooting for it to be successful, because who do you hire? I mean, how can you? Where do you start? Because if you was going to fire Quinn and Patricia, you should have did it before this year, before they invested so much into it. It's like, oh, you're gonna fire at the end. It's that's the point that I'm making. It's still not done properly, done correctly. You fire a person within the season and you don't have a replacement, or maybe they do have a replacement in mind, and maybe the guy is available or whatever. I don't know, and nobody knows at this point besides the ones that's behind the scenes, and as a fan, the average fan has to wait and see. But it's tough to be a Lions fan. It Not just now, but overall, it's just really tough because there's so much into it that actually kind of stops you from actually being just an actual fan. And that's the reason why I came up with my name. I really can't be a Lions fan because it stops me from being a Lions fan. What goes on behind the scenes stops me from being a Lions fan. The fan may say, like, what does that have to do with anything? If you love the Lions, you love the Lions. It's kind of hard to support something that is not worth supporting. If it doesn't have the best interest of the fans, but it tells you that it does, then it's kind of hard for me to follow. I'm not trying to say that's the case for them. I'm just saying in general. So when I looked at the Pistons, the Bad Boys, and the Going to Work, there's two stints. Or if I looked at the 49ers era with Bill Walsh, I looked at as far as like how things were being developed. It's easy to get behind something that you see where it's going. It's hard for me personally, for myself. It's hard for me to get behind something that I just don't. I can't imagine. I can't see it. I saw where Quinn and Patricia was going, and it would work, but it's like Jim Schwartz all over again. It's not going to be enough time. Any rookie head coach, unless his team is ready to go, this is where you get those teams like those first year head coaches, and they go to those teams and they hit the ground running. That team was ready to go. I don't know if this team is ready to go because it's still up under the atmosphere of losing. So what I go back to the Pistons, the Bad Boys, because that's where it starts. Before there's a Going to Work crew, there's the Bad Boys. So Jack McCloskey, Chuck Daly, and Isaiah Thomas, they built that team. You're gonna have to and they had to go through a lot of mess. to get to that point. They had to go through a lot of stuff. Isaiah had to go through a lot of stuff as a player, whatever. Is so much. The coach had to go through so much as a coach. The general manager had to go through so much as a general manager, and the ownership had to go. It was just how it worked. They had to go through a lot of walls. They had to beat down or bulldoze a lot of walls, and that's a losing franchise before Jack McCloskey got there. That's losing. I don't know the Fort Wayne Pistons. I don't know anything about anything other than that up to the point of the Jack McCloskey era, but I imagine it wasn't really that much successful because the teams were to beat was, or the teams to be was the original four, I believe, was New York, Boston, Philadelphia, and the Lakers. I believe those original four, and I believe those are considered arguably the most successful teams. Well, New York, with that you understand, but Boston, I can't even say Philadelphia, but I guess you could say Boston, LA definitely are two of the most winning organizations there is. But they're one of the founders of the basketball type deal. So anyway, I'm ranting. But I'm going to say, Lions fans, I really say this, and I really with all sincerity, I really do mean this. I salute